Right. Let's continue the story of rapid growth of Korean shipping during the take-off period. You can see the details of our policy to increase the tonnage through the planned shipbuilding scheme in this slide. We have built heavy and chemical industries, including steel mill, shipyard, and oil refinery during the economic development plan in the 1960s. In the 1960s, the Korean administration concluded that the self-sufficiency in steel and the construction of an integrated steel works are essential to economic development. Eventually, POSCO began to produce their steel product in 1972, just 4 years after the company's inauguration in April 1968 with 39 employees. By the way, the Hyundai Heavy Industries Company Limited, called HHI in short word, was founded in 1972 as a division of the Hyundai Group. The HHI, which is one of the world's largest shipyards, built its first ship in 1974. The Korea Oil Corporation was established in 1962 in cooperation with the Gulf Oil, and it was privatized in 1980s. Its new name is now SK Energy. Oil embargo from 1973 to 1974 during the 1973 Arab-Israel War. Members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which we call OPEC, imposed an embargo against United States. Therefore, the demand of oil tankers reduced sharply, and the Korean shipbuilding industry expected to be faced with severe difficulty. Korea produced plenty of steel plates, and the shipyards were ready to build the ships, but got no orders from the outside. Eventually, the planned shipbuilding scheme was introduced to link shipbuilding to shipping. They made a rule set for planned shipbuilding. The ship owners must make self-financing of 10%, and 50% should come from domestic fund loan, and 40% of foreign currency loan. The tonnage acquired by the planned shipbuilding scheme amounted to 1,259 ships, which is 4.8 million gross tons during 1975 to 1993. It accounted for 14% of a total new order for Korean shipbuilders. So they could survive by the planned shipbuilding scheme. Okay, let me introduce BBC HP, or BBC PO in other words. The full name is Bareboat Charter Hire Purchase. BBC HP was bareboat charter purchase option in BBC PO. BBC is a contract for the hire of a vessel for an agreed period, during which the charterers acquire most of the right of the owners. BBC may be thought of as an equivalent term of a long-term vehicle lease contract. BBC is most usually on Beacon 89 Charter Party form, which is the standard Charter Party form for BBC. BBC is used by owners such as banks and finance houses which are not prepared to operate or manage ship themselves. A bareboat charter, what sometimes we call demise charter, is often hinged to a management agreement. BBC may be hinged to a purchase option after expiry of the charter or during the hire period. The hire payment may include installment of the purchase price, and the transfer of ownership may follow the final installment. In essence, the vessel owners put the vessel without any crew at the complete disposal of the charterers and pay the capital cost, but usually no other cost. The charterers have commercial and technical responsibility for the vessel and pay all costs except capital cost. Besides the bareboat charter, there are another type of charter party. Please watch the short video clip which explains the charter party contract. I believe you have a better understanding what is chartering, types of charter party, and types of and what is the charter contents of the charter party. Okay, the group of companies we call 재벌 in Korean word, accumulated capitals become rich through the first to third economic development plans, which were initiated by the states. So they were able to establish a shipping business. They are Hyundai, LG, 국제, SK, Samik, and etc., which had their own cargo. Second, the number of Korea Ship Owners Association members, which means the number of ocean-going shipping companies, increased from 21 companies in 1970 to 72 companies in 1978. Gross tonnage owned by Korean ship owners increased from 7,610 잠깐만요. 갑자기 이게 76만 1000이 안 읽으니까. 거기서 다시 할게요. 시작합니다. 네. Gross tonnage owned by Korean ship owners increased from 7,610,000 tons in 1970 to 7 million tons in 1980. you can see how many ships they, the KSA member companies, purchased through the BBC HP programs during 1970 to 1983 from this table. They purchased only one ship in 1970, 18 ships in 1972, 57 ships in 1973, 119 ships in 1974, and 145 ships in 1975, which was the peak value. Thereafter, the numbers have gradually decreased. 113 ships in 1978, 82 ships in 1980, and 59 ships in 1983. Consequently, we can say that the BBC HP has been the major method of acquiring tonnage by Korean ship owners. BBC HP is the main source for acquiring tonnages. You see this graph. This graph shows the relationship between the amount of import and export and the ship's tonnage during 20 years. 20 years is the period during the first Economic Development Plan to fourth Economic Development Plan. The blue line, you see, indicate the increasing trend of ship's tonnage, as you can see. They are on very steep growth trend. The red line explains the growth tendency on the amount of import and export. And the yellow lines shows the trend of a seaborne trade volume. As you can see, the year 1972 was the starting line of the fast-growing economy in terms of amount of import and export and the ship's tonnage. Then what happened in 1972? What is the background of the very rapid growth of the ship's tonnage from 1972? Yes, we have introduced BBC HP scheme in 1972, and the industrial capital started to establish shipping companies. Therefore, we can say that the BBC HP was the motive for the rapid growth of ship's tonnage in Korea. Right, let's move to human resource area. The maritime manpower is an important factor that cannot be ignored for the rapid growth of shipping in Korea. The entrance quota of two Korean Maritime Education and Training Institute, they are Korea Maritime University and Mokpo Maritime College, was only 200 in 1950s. However, they were increased to 300 in early 1960s and to 500 in late 1960s, which is more than double compared to the quota in 1950s. The number of students of a Maritime Education Training Institute increased continuously during the 1970s, as you can see on this table. Then the number of student intake was 600 in 1972 and 800 in 1973 and 1,000 in 1975. Busan Maritime High School was founded in 1978 and Incheon Maritime High School in 1981 to supply lower class of merchant marine officers. Consequently, the total number of student intake was increased up to 1,320 students in 1981. More importantly, the increase of student number has been decided proactively. I mean, the training of qualified manpower took precedence over the reinforcement of the shipping fleet. I can say the human resource first, then the ships. This bar chart shows the significant increasing trend. What is it? It is the number of Korean seafarers who worked on the foreign flagships during 1967 to 1988. We had only 2,340 seafarers in 1967 who worked on the foreign flagships. However, the number increased to more than 10,000 in 1975 and more than 20,000, 20,000 in 1980, and finally 42,471 seafarers in 1987, which was the peak year. After 1987, the number of overseas seafarers decreased gradually, and about 3,000 seafarers are still working on overseas vessels now. Now, let's move to next stage, which is the maturation period during mid-1980 to 2016 for about 35 years. The rapid growth of shipping led to side effects ultimately. The number of ocean-going shipping companies increased from 20 companies to 70, which is 3.5 times growth. Gross tonnage of ocean-going ships also increased from 800,000 to 7 million deadweight tons, which is 9 times the growth during the maturation period. The fast-growing Korean shipping industry suffered from the global economic recession. As you may know well, the first oil shock was in 1973 due to that Egypt and Syria attack on Israel in October 6th. The Fourth Middle East War broke out. As a result, the oil production decreased. Moreover, the second oil shock was in early 1980s due to the political unrest in Iran. Therefore, Iran reduced the oil production, and other oil production countries also participated on this oil reduction policy. Consequently, the oil price doubled in the early 1980s. The Korean economy was hardest hit by the second oil shock. As you know well, the shipping is capital-intensive industry. Therefore, the bankruptcy of a shipping company led to the banking crisis in Korea. So, the Korean government should take some countermeasures to overcome the crisis and to save the shipping and the banks in Korea. That is the Shipping Business Rationalization Plan, which was formulated on 29th of December in 1983. Economic boom was short, but the shipping recession was long. The Shipping Business Rationalization Plan was State Initiative Rationalization Plan to overcome the shipping recession in 1980s. As the result of the plan, 66 shipping companies were merged into 20 companies finally. Let me explain some details of rationalization plan. 63 shipping companies out of 66 were participated on this plan. It means almost all shipping companies were participated in the plan. The ocean-going shipping companies should be merged into 6 groups, and near-coastal shipping companies should be merged into 4 groups. And the Korea-Japan lines are planned to be merged into 4 groups, but they were merged into 9 groups finally. And the Special Purpose Shipping Company to be 1 company. Let me explain my personal experience during the recession period for your reference. As I already introduced myself briefly, I have graduated from the Maritime Academy in 1977 and went to sea as a deck officer and worked on a commercial ship for 4 years. I stopped work on board and got a new job on shore in 1981. October 1982, I was dispatched to India on a 4-year schedule as company representative. However, I received the order to close the Indian office 16 months later in February 1984. So I returned to head office in Seoul in April 1984. Why? Because my company was merged by another company. So I started to work in a new company from July 1984. See how dramatic it is. That was my personal experience during the shipping recession period. Now, I'm going to introduce some important policies for the promotion of the Korean shipping industry. I already explained that Korea Maritime and Port Administration was established in 1976. Which is a separate and independent administration under the Ministry of Transport. After 20 years, when KMPA, the Korea Maritime and Port Administration, was established, a new ministry called Ministry of Maritime and Fisheries Affairs was founded to support the maritime and fisheries sector in 1996. Thereafter, we introduced some favorable policies for the shipping, such as exemption of import duty for ships in 1996, and International Ship Registry Scheme in 1998. The scheme is the exemption of acquisition tax, 50% up on property tax, and they can employ more foreign crews. 잠시 쉬었다 할게요. 계속 할까요? 예. They have many more favorable policies for the promotion of shipping. Korea Protection and Indemnity Club, we called them KPNI in short, was founded in the year of 2000. Now, more than 1,000 ships, which is 23 million gross tons, are entered in the KPNI Club in 2019. The Ship Investment Company System was introduced in 2002, and the tonnage taxation system was introduced in 2005. The Korea Maritime Guarantee Insurance Company was set in 2014. Finally, the Shipping Reconstruction Plan was formulated in 2017, and the Korea Maritime Investment Promotion Agency was established in 2018 to support the maritime industry. These are the important policies for the promotion of Korean shipping industry. Now, I'm going to introduce two important issues for the ship-related policy. They are, first, International Ship Registry Scheme, which was introduced in 1998, and the second, Tonnage Taxation System, which was introduced in 2005. Let's think about FOC, Flag of Convenience, is a business practice whereby a ship's owners register a merchant ship in a country other than the ship's owners in order to avoid financial charges or restrictive regulations in the owner's country. And the ship flies the civil ensign of that country called the flag state. Many Korean ship owners have registered their fleet in FOC to save the crew cost and for better shipping financial purposes. However, Korea is a country at high risk of conflict all the times. Therefore, we must keep some level of national flag ships for the national security and safety. In addition to that, we have to reserve some number of skilled maritime manpower, technology, and know-how for the same reason. Consequently, we designate a certain number of ships for the national security and safety. We call them as National Inevitable Fleet. Now, I'm going to introduce the International Ship Registry and the Inevitable Fleet in detail. I'm going to explain the details of this International Ship Registry and the Inevitable Fleet in the next lecture. Let's take a break.